Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Beth El Temple Center. We are so delighted to be welcoming Blue Heron and its ensemble with us this evening. In particular, we're delighted to welcome back my friend, colleague, and mentor and predecessor, Cantor Louise Treitman, who also served this congregation, I believe, not once but twice. As well as Professor Josh Jacobson, and I was trying to remember how many classes I took with him, but I believe it was 6 during cantorial school, and I'm here to tell you that you're in for quite a treat. His scholarship is second to none. He's intelligent and humorous and generous and incredibly smart. So you're gonna really, and he loves Song of Songs, so you're in for a real treat in terms of a passion project. So without further ado, I'm going to present Laura Zoll to introduce our program.
Hi, I will add my welcome. My name is Laura Zoll, and I add my delighted welcome to all of you, both here in the room and streaming from afar. I stand here wearing 3 hats that are all thrillingly merging together tonight. As a member of Beth El Temple Center, I want to give thanks to the many members of our congregation who enthusiastically and ably supported this program, especially Rabbi Kraus, Rabbi Intraub, Cantor Robbins, the staff and leadership who ticked off all the items on the checklist to bring this program to this spot, to Daniel Morell, who greeted you at the door, to Jeff Alexander handling our streaming. Hopefully those in the streaming world out there can hear and see everything perfectly, and to Andrea Guasdo and the Adult Learning Committee for providing the array of snacks so we can schmooze and nosh after the program. Second hat, as a board member of Blue Heron, I extend a special welcome to our friends and audience members who are joining us tonight in this, a new venue, which is so appropriate as we delve into this treasure trove of Hebrew love poetry and Jewish liturgy. If tonight whets your appetite for more glorious music, please consider coming to our full Song of Songs concert on Saturday night at First Church, Cambridge. Tickets are available on the Blue Heron website, or after tonight's program, you can see Bobby Pape over there, and he will happily get you on our mailing list and provide you with a ticket. Please take a minute right now to turn off phones, watches. Oh, thank you. I see people doing that. Anything that might make any sort of noise that would not normally be heard in the 16th century. Finally, my third hat is as a passionate lover of scholarship, early music, and Judaism. Can you feel my giddy enthusiasm and excitement as all those strands are converging to tonight's program? So now let's prepare ourselves to be dazzled and enlightened. Please join me in welcoming Professor Josh Jacobson, Music Director Scott Metcalfe, Cantor Louise Treitman, and the magnificent musicians of Blue Heron.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And again, I want to extend our thanks to Beth El Temple Center for hosting us here this evening. I'm not going to take too long, but I just want to say what the format is of this evening's talk and lecture and demonstration and performance, and welcome not only you but everyone who's watching us streaming and people who will be able to see this recorded after this evening is over. We're going to, Professor Jacobson is going to talk about whatever he wants to, really, regarding the Song of Songs. We give him absolute carte blanche. And if you have questions of any kind to pose during his talk, if something occurs to you, please write it down on an index card. Bobby has them. There's some at the back, I think, as well. You can pick them up and just jot them down and get them to Bobby, who will get them to me, and I will moderate questions towards the end of the evening. We're going to be done by 8:30, and then we can nosh and schmooze. We'll talk. I will get back to our concert and the original impetus for this event, but for the moment I'd like to introduce our distinguished guests this evening, and our speaker is Joshua Jacobson, the founder and director of the Zamir Chorale of Boston, an emeritus professor of music and the director of choral activities at Northeastern University. He is a visiting professor and a senior consultant in the School of Jewish Music at Hebrew College in Newton, and one of the world's leading authorities on Jewish choral music. He is also the author of several books, including, most relevant to this evening, Chanting the Hebrew Bible, The Art of Cantillation, which is the book. He wrote it. He's from here, wrote the book, and he trained with the book and other methods. Cantor Louise Treitman, our other guest, who will also be singing with us on the concert on Saturday. She was a cantor here, as we mentioned, for 3 years. She's also the High Holy Day cantor at Beth Hillel, Roma, as in Italy, a job we should all like to have. She teaches rabbinical and cantorial students at Hebrew College in Newton. And she's worked with the Zamir Chorale of Boston under Professor Jacobson's direction for many, many years, and has sung as a soloist and has trained singers as well. She continues to sing with them and is the chair of its board of directors. We couldn't be more pleased to have the two of them with us this evening. We also will have 5 singers from Blue Heron: Jason McStutz, Kim Leeds, Daniel Fridley, Paul Guthrie, and James Reese, and we'll hear from them later. For now, I turn it over to you.
Shir hashirim asher lishlomo, yishakeni min shikot pihu.
How many of you have actually read this book of the Bible? Show of hands. Let me give you a little sample. Kiss me, make me drunk with your kisses. Your sweet loving is better than wine. Now he has brought me to the house of wine, and his banner over me is love. Let me lie among vine blossoms in a bed of apricots. I am in the fever of love. His left hand beneath my head, his right arm holding me close. How beautiful you are, my love. The doves of your eyes looking out from the thicket of your hair, your teeth, white hues, all alike that come up fresh from the pond. A crimson ribbon, your lips. How I listen for your voice. The curve of your cheek, a pomegranate in the thicket of your hair, your breasts. are two fawns, twins of a gazelle grazing in a field of lilies before day breathes. Before the shadows of night are gone, I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh, the hill of frankincense. You are all beautiful, my love, my perfect one. Awake, north wind, south wind, come blow upon my garden. Let its spices stream out. Let my lover come into his garden and taste its delicious fruit. I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh and my spices. I have eaten from the honeycomb. I have drunk the milk and the wine. Feast, friends, and drink till you are drunk with love. I was asleep, but my heart stayed awake. Listen, my lover knocking. Open, my dear, my friend, my dove, my perfect one. My hair is wet, drenched with the dew of night. But I have taken off my clothes. How can I dress again? I have bathed my feet. Must I soil them? My love reached in for the latch, and my heart beat wild. I rose to open to my love. My finger is wet with my sweet flowing myrrh on the door bolt. That day you seemed to be a tall palm tree, and your breasts, the clusters of its fruit. I said in my heart, let me climb into that palm tree and take hold of its branches. And oh, may your breasts be like clusters of grapes on a vine, the scent of your breath like apricots, your mouth good wine that pleases my lover, rousing him even from sleep. I am my lover's. He longs for me, only for me. Is that the Bible? You bet it is. What's in this book? Young lovers, shepherds and gardeners, country people, not city people, seeking each other out, making love, describing and praising in great details the partner's physical beauty, sometimes metaphorically, sometimes very physically. So where and when did this book come from? There are some who say that the Song of Songs was written by King Solomon in the 10th century before the Common Era. It's based on the heading of the book, which is Shir HaShirim Asher Shlomo, the Song of Songs of Solomon. And they identify that with King Solomon of the Bible. And that's the traditional view of the authorship of the book. Others say that the Song of Songs is a collection of songs written at various times, most of them written by women, and finally anthologized as a book in the 3rd century before the Common Era. How do these scholars date that book into the 3rd century? Judging from the language especially, despite its attribution to King Solomon, who was 10th century before the Common Era, there are Persian words that were not found anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible, imported from Persia, like the word pardes, which means an orchard, and it's related to our English word paradise. And then there's also a Greek word. The word describes a palanquin, which is a kind of a portable throne. And that Greek word is apirion, and you're going to hear it now.
This is a beautiful version, composition by Yehezkel Braun, and he uses a chanting style, but it's not the actual chanting cantillation of the text.
Shlomo, me'at
By the way, I don't know if there are any, I'm not going to say old, but longtime Bostonians here, but a Pirion was also the name of a wonderful catering, a kosher caterer in Boston many years ago that was started actually by my grandparents. So I have a connection with that word. Okay, so this is a book of the Hebrew Bible, but God is not mentioned explicitly even once in this book. So people say, how did it get into the Bible? In fact, there is a debate in the Mishnah, which is a compilation of rabbinic writings compilated around, I think, the 3rd century, or the year 300. A debate about whether or not the Song of Songs should be included in the canon of the Bible. The case was closed when Rabbi Akiva declared, no one could argue that the Song of Songs is not a sacred book that belongs in the Bible, for all the biblical writings are holy, but the Song of Songs is the holy of holies. What do you think he meant by that? The ultimate union of a man and a woman, their spiritual union, their physical union, is considered sacred in Jewish traditions. The wedding ceremony is called kiddushin, holiness. So a biblical song about love and marriage becomes the holy of holies. But not so fast. Later authorities, both Jewish and Christian, were somewhat scandalized by the explicit erotic language in this book. They couldn't remove it from the Bible. It was too late for that. But they could come up with their own translations, not just interpretation, their own translation. The 11th century rabbi known as Rashi, who was a prominent medieval Jewish commentator in France, he interpreted the Song of Songs not as a literal depiction of youthful love, but as a depiction of the Jewish people's relationship with God, particularly during exile, emphasizing the people's longing for God's return and for reunification. And about 100 years later, another prominent rabbi, Maimonides, viewed the Song of Songs as an allegory representing the soul's quest for union with the divine intellect, a refined intellectual love rather than a literal depiction of physical romantic love. That interpretation is reflected in this book, which is supposedly a translation. This is published by a company called Earth Song, Art Songs. Earth Songs publishes my other, Art Scroll. Thank you, Louise. Art Scroll, and it's a rather very orthodox publishing company. So listen to how they translate that. Remember this verse I read, "Kiss me, make me drunk with your kisses, your sweet loving is better than wine." In this book it appears, "Communicate your innermost wisdom to me again in loving closeness, for your friendship is dearer than all earthly delights." Or how about this verse? "That day you seemed to be a tall palm tree, and your breasts the clusters of its fruit." In the Art Scroll, "Such is your statue, lightened to a towering palm tree. From your teachers flow sustenance like wine-filled clusters." And Christian theology also. A representation, this was considered a representation of the relationship between Christ and the church, or between God and God's people. Is that censorship? Was the language of the Song of Songs not politically correct or theologically correct? Did it have to be sanitized? Excuse me. Thank you. It's water. But does it have to be one or the other? Can't it be both physically erotic and spiritually uplifting? According to Professor Carrie Ellen Walsh, who wrote a beautiful book on the subject. The most powerful theme running through the Song of Songs is what she calls a yearning for things unseen. A yearning for things unseen. She draws a compelling connection between the yearning for the unseen lover and our spiritual yearning for the God who cannot be seen. We're going to hear another excerpt now from Cantor Treitman.
This is one of the selections that I'll be singing in the concert on Saturday night. And I wanted you to hear the English first from a different translation. This is the translation by Ariel Bloch and Chana Bloch, which is the one that we're using in the program. This is chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. You are all beautiful, my love, my perfect one. Oh, come with me, my bride. Come down with me from Lebanon. Look down from the peak of Amanah. Look down from Sinir and Hermon, from the mountains of the leopards, the lions' dens. You have ravished my heart, my sister, my bride, ravished me with one glance of your eyes, one link of your necklace. And oh, your sweet loving, my sister, my bride, the wine of your kisses, the spice of your fragrant oils. Your lips are honey, honey and milk are under your tongue. Your clothes hold the scent of Lebanon. And this is the traditional cantillation, Ashkenazi cantillation. Ulach yafa rayati umum en ba iti milvanon kala iti milvanon tavoi tashuri merosh amana merosh senir v'chermon mim onot arayot meharre nemerim libavtini achoti chala libavtini biachad menayich biachad anak nitzav veronayich mayafu dodayich achoti chala ma tovu dodayich miyayin vereach shemanayich Nikol besamim, nofet titofna siftotayich chala, devash v'chalav tachat l'shonech, v'reach salmotayich kereach levanon.
Beautiful. About the connection between the erotic words and spirituality, I'm going to give a couple of examples of what scholars call intertextuality. Intertextuality means that there is something from, in this case, the Song of Songs, that resonates with texts from other parts of the Bible. So, in the Song of Songs, the lovers are constantly yearning for each other, seeking each other with difficulty. We have this verse in Hebrew, Yonati bechagve hasela beseter hamadrega harini et mar'ayich hashmi'ini et kolech. I should chant it. And in English, oh my dove, in the cranny of the rocks, hidden by the cliff, let me see your face, let me hear your voice. Okay, interesting. Why are they hiding? But we find nearly identical language in the book of Exodus. Moses asks the seemingly impossible to see God. Moses said, "Let me see your glory. Vayomar har'eni na et kevodecha," which is almost the same language as har'eni et mar'ayich, show me your face. And when that happens, Moses must be hidden in the cleft of a rock, just as the dove of the song is hidden in the cliff, in the cranny of the rocks. Behaya, in the Exodus it says, Behaya ba'avor kivodi, v'samticha b'nikrat hatsur, v'sakoti chapi alecha ad ovri. And as God presence passes by, God says, I will put you, Moses, in a cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand until I have passed by. Is it just a coincidence that we have such similar language and similar images? I don't think so. Now I'd like to sample and appreciate a little bit of the style of the poetry of this book. Listen to the first couple of verses. Shir hashirim asher lishlomo, yishakeni mineshikot pihu, ki tovim dodecha miyayin. L'reach shemanecha tovim, shemen turak shemecha, al ken alamot ahevucha. What sound do you hear recurring throughout those verses? Shh, right? And it's a very sensuous kind of sound. So we call that alliteration and assonance. That's the most obvious example of that. All of the senses are awakened in these poems. The sense of taste. Yavo Dodi legano v'yochal pri megadav. Let my lover come into his garden and taste my delicious fruit. We'll talk later about the eroticism of that, but for now. Aroma. We have, wake north wind, O south wind, come, breathe upon my garden, let its spices flow. Uri tzafon uvoi teman, hafichi gani yizelu v'samav. You can almost inhale these wonderful words. Sight. Libavtini be'achat me'enayich. You have captured my heart with one glance of your eyes. Hearing. Yonati hashmi'ini et kolech, ki kolech arev. My dove, let me hear your voice, your beautiful voice. And touch. Simolo tachat roshi vimino tichabekeni. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Okay, let's go back to the women's garden. The woman in chapter 4 is compared to a gan na'ul, a locked garden. But 4 verses later, her garden is open. Yavo dodi legano v'yochal pri megadav. Her garden is open, and her lover enters to eat the fruit of her garden. Another beautiful example of intertextuality that connects the erotic to the theological. Psalm 91, we have this verse, Yoshev beseter elyon betzel shaddai yit lonan. Now, you have to understand the Hebrew in order to understand the play on words here. It means, he that dwelleth in the shelter of the Most High, Shaddai, or Elyon is Most High, shall abide or lie under the shadow of the Almighty. And the name for God here is Shaddai. In the Song of Songs, chapter 1, we have Tzuror Hamor Dodi Li Bein Shaddai Yalin. Now, in that case, the word Shaddai means my breasts. A bundle of myrrh is my lover unto me. He lies all night between my breasts. So these two words, Shaddai and Shaddai, are identical, or nearly identical, depending on how you pronounce them, And clearly, the one, I believe, in the Song of Songs is a reference to the well-known, what would have been well-known, the psalm, to the people who were hearing it. Song of Songs is traditionally chanted on the festival of Passover. Now, why the festival of Passover? The Song of Songs is all about springtime, and Passover celebrates the springtime. And it is chanted in the synagogue and also at home at the Passover Seder. In many communities, it is also chanted on Friday night. And here we're going to get into another connection between the erotic and the spiritual. The mystics, the Kabbalists, considered the Sabbath, Shabbat, a time of the symbolic coming together of, if you will, God's male and female qualities, as it were. Jewish mystics, the Kabbalah, saw the Song of Songs as a secret code to understanding the esoteric, sacred, quasi-erotic, quasi-anthropomorphic, heterosexual love between a human, represented by the female lover, and God as the male lover. That's pretty anthropomorphic, right? Assigning human attributes to God, but it's Kabbalah, right? Let me give you a sample of how this is chanted on a Friday night. We've heard the chanting that Cantor Treitman demonstrated for the Eastern European Ashkenazic melody. Here is an Oriental Sephardic method of chanting Shir HaShirim. Shir HaShirim asher Shlomo yishakeni min nishikot pihu ki tovim doldecha miyayin לריח שמניך טובים, שמן תורק שמך, על כן עלמות אהבוך, מושכני אחריך נרוצה, הביאני המלך הדרב, נגילה ונשמחה, נזכיר עדותיך מיין, מישרים אהבוך. That's a whole different mode of singing. In Israel, many of these songs have been excerpted from their biblical context, and they are sung as love songs. But this is nothing new. Here's a passage from the Talmud. Tanu Rabbanan, hakore pasuk shel shir hashirim bevet mishtaot, ve'oseh oto kemin zemer mevi ra'a la'olam. The sages taught, someone who sings a verse from the Song of Songs in a tavern, as if it were a form of secular song, introduces evil into the world. Now, when do we make laws? Only when people are doing it, right? Right? So that seems to imply that some Jews had been treating the Song of Songs as if it were a bawdy barroom ballad. So even more than 1,000 years ago, it must have been sung using their text and context as erotic songs. And we know that because it was forbidden. All right, we're going to hear again Cantor Louise Treitman with a sample of some modern secular songs based on our biblical text.
Actually, I'm going to ask you to sing along. Because this may be familiar. It's in our prayer book on page 10. It's Dodi Lee, and it's a familiar melody. This is talking about my beloved is mine and I am my beloved's amongst the flowers. So there are several verses. Actually, let me get the translation. Okay, so verses 2:16. This is the refrain that you're going to sing along with me, and some of you I know it. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feasts in a field of lilies. There's a difference, different ideas about what the word Shoshanim is. Okay, that's the refrain, so I'll say it one more time in Hebrew so you'll know to join me. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. And then the first verse that I will sing, and if you know it, please join along, is chapter 3, verse 6. And that is, Mizotola, who is that rising from the desert like a pillar of smoke, more fragrant with myrrh and frankincense than all the spices of the merchant? And then we have chapter 4, verse 9, which is the next verse, which is the one I chanted already with the Eastern Ashkenazic chanting. And that is, you have ravished my heart, my sister, my bride. And that's just a little part of it. And then we end with chapter 4, verse 16, which Joshua already said in the Hebrew, Uri tzafon uvoi teman, awake north wind, O south wind, come. And so those are the verses. Again, if you know them, please sing along, but you can all sing along with Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Mi zotola min hamidbar, mi zotola mekuteret mor ulivona, mor ulivona. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Libavtini achoti chala, libavtini chala, libavtini achoti chala, libavtini chala. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Uri tzafon uvoi teman, Uri tzafon uvoi teman. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim.
I'm going to jump in. This is not scripted, but one of the words that we sang is such a fascinating case. It's libavtini. I don't know if that word occurs anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible, and it's derived from the word lev, or levav, which means heart. And the suffix of ti means you did something to me. So libavtini, how do you translate it? Usually, I think the best one is you have captured my heart. So we take this noun and we turn it into a very expressive, loving verb. You have captured my heart, libavtini.
Thank you. Just the one.
Just the one song?
Just the one song.
All right.
We may sing that at the end too, so make sure you remember it.
All right, Scott, this would be a good time, I think, to hear the Blue Heron.
So This program has its genesis, I would say, about 30 years ago when I first started doing Renaissance choral music. I'm a violinist.
Microphone.
Oh. I'm a violinist. Should I start over? Okay. This program had its genesis about 30 years ago when I first started doing Renaissance choral music. I'm a violinist, but always interested in languages and singing above all. And at a certain point in my life got asked sort of through happenstance to audition to direct a Renaissance choir. And I said, I don't really know anything about that, but sure. I would love to, and that was sort of how I got interested in Renaissance music. This was a group called Convivium Musicum. It's an amateur Renaissance choir, still here, now under its fourth director at least, and my successor served that position longer than I did, and I thought I was there a long time. And in that group, I was introduced to especially Spanish 16th century music, Guerrero and Victoria and Morales, and this incredibly potent and expressive music, which was quite new to me. And I found that these texts from the Song of Songs that were set by these Spanish Catholic composers in the 16th century had this incredible erotic quality about them. I mean, incredible, sensuous and loving and intense in a way which seemed very particular. And I thought, we did a lot of these with Convivium. This is in the 90s, including some of the music that we're doing on this program on Saturday. And I thought, oh, this would be a great subject for something. When I went back to school, this will be my thesis. Well, yeah, writing on the Song of Songs, that's crazy. For a master's thesis, it was overambitious. So that's not what I did. But this program grew from that, and it's this sense that in these settings of Song of Songs texts, that there's this meeting of the divine and the spiritual and the human and the erotic all in one place in a way that seems correct to me, true and honest and humane in the very best possible way. So this program now draws together the original poetry, the lyric poetry in Hebrew, and its entry into the sacred canon in the Hebrew Bible, and then its translation into Latin. And the Latin has its own kind of power sometimes. I mean, we've lost a lot in translation. Certainly the sound of the Hebrew is changed irrevocably and lost. We will hear some on this program, including some of these most wonderful, well, it's all wonderful, but some of the memorable things, such as the Shir HaShirim, the title that, or the head, which has been read and sung with all the shh, and our translation, we're usually by Ariel Bloch and Hannah Bloch, pick up some of this. Fortunately, the word kiss has some of the same qualities to it. So one can use some of the same qualities in English as well. But the Latin sometimes has something of, not an advantage exactly, but it changes things in a potent way. So this libaftini, which is, you've captured my heart, you've ravished my heart, in the Latin, which is Jerome's translation of the Vulgate, it's vulnerasti cor meum. You have wounded my heart with one glance from your eyes. So if you've ever been struck by love at first sight, which maybe you have, it's not a merely pleasurable experience, right? It's complex and it can feel very painful. Vulnerasti captures that quite beautifully, and one of the songs, it's a sacred song on the program, has this text, and it's super intense, I think, if you will see. And I invite you, please, to join us on the concert on Saturday evening, if you're able. That language, then, of course, the imagery and the ideas penetrate all of Western European poetry eventually, in love poetry. It's in Petrarch and through Petrarch into all of Shakespeare and everything, as well as, of course, for English speakers in the Bible of the King James Version from the early 17th century in its own wonderful and sometimes slightly warped ways, as they were evading some of the direct physical meanings of the text to keep it within what they thought were religious confines. The program will have this. It tries to have a little bit of everything and place all of these many voices side by side. So Louise will sing some of the original, some of the Hebrew cantillation, and we have two actors, one of whom a girl and a boy, one of whom is Israeli and will speak some in Hebrew, and the other of whom is Mexican American, will do some poetry in Spanish as well. And then we're going to sing songs in Spanish and sacred pieces in Latin. Now, in the Catholic liturgy, these texts are all addressed to Mary. So they're all for Feast of the Virgin Mary, and some of them feel it's a bit discomforting to sing, "Draw me after you, Virgin Mary, and I will climb into the palm tree, and your breasts will be like clusters of grapes." This is literally what that text says, and it's a pretty intense setting of that as well. So we're going to give you a little sample of what's coming up. So the first we're going to do is a song in Spanish. And this is from, it's an anonymous song from a songbook compiled in the mid-16th century. The noche, it says, if the night is dark and the way is short, why do you not come to me, my friend? Jimmy Reese and Jason McStutes and Paul Guthrie.
Escura
So that's a secular song, but the sacred songs have very much the same effect and intensity about them. And we're going to give you a sample of this by, he's not a Spaniard, actually, Nicolas Gombert, or Gombert, depending if he's Flemish or French, and we don't exactly know. But he's a composer who spent a lot of time in Spain. He worked for the Emperor Charles V and traveled to Spain, and his music had a lot of influence on Spanish composers and is actually often taken to be Morales's, the great composer born around the year 1500 in Spain. That is, pieces by one composer are attributed to the other in certain sources and back and forth. Now, Gombert, this is a piece in 5 parts for 5 voices. You heard in that piece the way dissonance or tones that rub up against each other have this incredibly powerful sensuous effect. And Gombert loves to do this in ways which are sometimes a little puzzling to figure out. In Renaissance music, it's not always necessary. They didn't find it necessary to tell you exactly whether a note was flat or natural or sharp. There are habits, rules of thumb, things that we all know about how to apply the rules for whether you decide if a certain note is inflected one way or the other. But it's not always completely clear, and Gombert often puts you in situations where you can't tell what the right answer is. But what his music does is to set up all these extraordinary dissonances, sometimes 2 forms of the same note right next to each other or simultaneous. So an F natural and an F sharp sounding simultaneously. They're going in different directions, which is why it works contrapuntally, but it has this effect of heightening the sensual power of everything that goes on. And then we tie that to these very powerful words. This is, "You are all beautiful, my love, and there is no flaw in you. Come from Lebanon, my dove. Come, you shall be crowned." So it's slightly adapted from the Song of Songs. Some of these liturgical texts, I think the composers or the makers of the Catholic liturgy knew the words so well that they didn't think to go look at them again in the book when they were making up the liturgical items, and they just, so sometimes they're compiled, and the imagery, it's a cycle of lyrics or an anthology or a collection of some kind, and the same images recur, turned around, sometimes in remix. So you can see how it could easily happen. Tota pulchra es, amica mea, just like amigo, como no venís amigo, why do you not come? Tota pulchra es, amica mea, et macula non est in te. Veni de Libano, columba mea, veni coronaviris. Thank you. That's Kim Leeds, Jimmy Reese, Jason McSuits, Paul Guthrie, and Daniel Fridley. Now, I would want that at my wedding, but I would also want Louise to sing the entire Song of Songs, so one could have both. So at this point, I would love to invite any questions, and Josh especially should speak more and answer anything about anything, but feel free, let's talk. We would love to just open this up. I have learned so much this evening and realized why I love this poem so much.
A good time for a dialogue. Just one thing that occurred to me, I mentioned this to Scott, I think, when we met earlier, the idea of this sensuous music having to be set to a sacred text reminds me of the fact that visual artists at the time who wanted to paint something sensual, a nude, let's say, a beautiful woman, they had to have it take place on a biblical story or an allegorical story. It couldn't just be, here's a beautiful woman. And the same thing here. I think this sensuous music had to be grounded somehow in this biblical text and sung so beautifully. And, you know, in this time of dissonance, thank you for the harmony. All right, we have a card?
Yes, and they're both the same question, basically. How do we know, or what is the evidence for the authorship being by a woman or women?
Yeah, okay. Why do we say that it was written by women? Because so many of the verses here are from the point of view of a woman. She is speaking about her beloved. She is speaking about her garden. There's just so much she and her in the first person here that it's hard to imagine that it would have been written by a male. There are parts where we see from the point of view of the male, but it's always describing the beauty of the woman. So I think it really makes a lot of sense. There's a few books of the Bible. I think the book of Ruth seems to have female authorship, perhaps Esther to a certain degree, but certainly the Song of Songs feels like it's a woman authorship.
I was just wondering, when you were talking about the Spanish love songs of the 16th century, what part of Spain they were written in and whether they would have had contact
Repeat the question.
in that part of Spain with Jews in Spain.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question for those of us streaming as well. Do we know where some of the secular songs in Spanish, where in Spain they were written on, where they were written, and what do we know about contact between Spanish, Christian Spanish poetry and Jewish and Jews in Spain, and of course Muslims in Spain also of course before the expulsions at the end of the 15th century. Not being a historian, I know a little bit about this. It's a really fraught time in Spain, right? Because it's been decreed that the Muslims they've been reconquered. Most of the Iberian Peninsula at one point was ruled by Muslims who were gradually fought back and then thrown out. And then the Jews were expelled also in 1492, 1493 that these things happen. But it's worse than that. It's that you can stay as long as you convert, or you have to leave. And it creates this sort of awful, buried mirror society where, of course, the Christian authorities don't believe anyone who says they've converted. And so there's this constant sort of looking under surfaces. It's the era of the Inquisition in Spain. At the same time, all three faiths had lived until relatively recently before that in some kind of harmony and balance and tolerance. And it was, it's a very, very fruitful multicultural world for centuries, although certainly with tensions, but in the arts and in architecture and in all sorts of cultural ways as well. That's to say that I don't think we probably know. I don't really. Do you?
Okay, maybe it's somewhat related. It's a somewhat related question. If you look at European music of the 16th century generally, do you see the same tendency, the same mixture of sacred and profane as you see in Spanish music specifically?
That's another very large question. To whether in European music in general in the 16th century we see the same sort of closeness or interpenetration of the sacred and the secular as we do in Spanish music. I think that people have all of that in them all the time, and that we try hard sometimes, or some people try hard, or institutions try hard at some points to separate those two as if they're actually different, or as if they're not interpenetrated, or if they're not really actually just two facets of the same thing, two sides of the same coin, that we all have all of that in us. I think that's not a view which was shared by religious authorities in every place at all times, but I think...
It's an understatement.
yeah.
In terms of the actual music of that period, which of course you're way more familiar with than I am.
In the music culture, and in music culture, absolutely. Yeah, and I think I can say that with confidence. I think artists in general feel the sacred. I mean, one of the reasons we go into art is because we feel the divine and the human and the natural all in the same place within us in our heart. So we're open to all of it. And the people who are singing the Mass in church on Sunday are the same people who are singing the love songs in the tavern the night before. Really, literally the same people. So I don't, yeah, I think there's always been tension, and I think there's always overlap.
I just want to go back to the point of the question that was raised before. There is some evidence of Jewish folk songs having roots in or sharing roots with Christian folk songs from that period. So there are Sephardic songs, folk songs in the Ladino language that mirror, and we have versions in the Christian society of very similar folk songs. Now, we don't know who took from whom or if they came from a common source, but as I understand it, ethnomusicologists, or music historians rather, who are trying to unearth the early Spanish folk song are studying these Ladino, these Jewish songs, to get to shine some light on that. So there was some interaction going on.
I just wanted to add one point. There are several translations, the one that you've used for your program by the Hannah and Ariel Bloch, and also this by Marcia Falk. They've used different fonts when it's a woman talking, or when it's a man talking, or when it's like the chorus talking, that they're coming from so-and-so, from such and such place. So the fonts adds to the beauty of it. So just...
I think to the point about how the imagery is taken over and shared, one of the Spanish poems that our Spanish actor will read on the program, it's a sonnet, so a sort of Petrarchan poetic form, and it says, "He knows not what love is who loves not you, celestial beauty, lovely dearest spouse. Your head is of pure gold, your flowing hair is like the spreading fronds atop a palm. Your mouth is like a lily overflowing with dew at dawn, of ivory your neck, your hand a wheel, and on its palm the seal, the soul disguising, calls a hyacinth." So this imagery of the ivory neck and the head of gold and the palm, they are directly from this book.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone else? Gee, we've said so much already.
Something maybe about I have read, and it's been pointed out, it's really, really clear in the book how non-sexist the world is of the Song of Songs. Could you speak to that a bit?
What do you mean by non-sexist?
In that there's not a real distinction there's no power dynamic between the two sexes.
Right.
They're both in equal places, and they
Yes.
speak about each other in much the same terms.
Yes, yes. And it is heterosexual love, clearly, that is coming here. And we hear the voice of the woman who is searching for the man, and we hear the voice of the man who is searching for the woman. And that's right. They are, in many respects, very, very similar there. One phenomenon that we find throughout this book, there's an Arabic term for it. It's called wasf, and that means a depiction of the beauty of the lover. And it usually goes from the head down. You know, your head is, your hair is like, your lips are like, your breasts are like, etc. And then there's one actually towards the end of the book that goes from the bottom up. Your feet, you're dancing, so your feet are beautiful, and that occurs several times. The other really prominent doublet in this book, and maybe it speaks to what we're talking about, is the dream sequence. The woman, and I read a little bit of this earlier, the woman is lying in bed, and either she's dreaming or maybe it happens. She thinks she hears her lover knocking on the door. And in one of the sequences, she goes to see him, but he's gone away already. And she goes around the town searching for her lover. And she asks the watchmen, "Have you seen my lover?" And in one of them, the watchman beat her. And in another, she eventually finds him and says, "Don't go away, don't," and then there's this wonderful, strange sentence, "Don't rouse love until it is ready." And there's different ways to translate that. But this idea of the man and the woman being egalitarian in that respect, and yet there are threatening men, the watchmen in the city, and some of the shepherds and the shepherdesses like to tease them. Where is this beautiful lover that you say that you have? And then she says, "No problem. He is my lover. Here he's coming. He's a beautiful man." And the ideal world is the world of the countryside. And the scenes that take place in the city are fraught with danger, and it clearly reflects the society that this comes out of. And another thing that we see, and it's a little bit like Tristan, that they are happiest in the nighttime. Daytime, they're a little bit exposed, and there's danger, and they let's wait until the nighttime, and that's when we will make love. So just so many beautiful images. But you're right, there is that egalitarian aspect to it.
Yeah, and at the end, there's this wonderfully enigmatic, it's not really the end because it's an anthology and a cycle, but the last words are the girl saying, "Go away," which seems a little puzzling after all this, come to me now. And at the end she says, "Go away, it's because it's dawn. He needs to go. Come back later." And then she has this marvelous image of him running across the hills, and off she goes. Yeah. Laura, and then...
Josh, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to this material's inclusion in the Haggadah. You mentioned that it's spring-like, but what we've been talking about is really the erotic love poetry. Mm-hmm. And my sense of the Haggadah is we were slaves, now we're free. Like, how does it fit in, and where does it come?
Yeah, so Passover, Pesach, is the festival of freedom, but it's also the festival of springtime. And both the Passover and Easter, I think, celebrate this idea of the rebirth, the resurrection, if you will, or the rebirth of nature at this time. And there are many verses in the Song of Songs. Behold, hine hastav avar hanitzanim nir'u ba'aretz ve'et hazamir higia. Behold, the winter is past, the buds appear on the land, and the time of, depending on how we translate, singing, or the time of the nightingale has arrived. So there's a lot of imagery of budding of flowers and fruit, but it's explicitly stated there. And I think everybody thinks of this as a song, as a hymn of springtime. And that's why it would be. No, other than that, it doesn't have any, to my knowledge, direct connection with the Festival of Freedom, per se, or the Festival of Unleavened Bread. But it just brings out the springtime aspect of it.
I just have one more thought, and then we have snacks. A nosh. You can nosh and schmooze, and come and ask more questions. I think, although, yeah, it's the character's a girl and a boy. Clearly they're two. And I think he calls her woman or something at some time, but they're clearly very young. They're adolescents, absolutely just flushed with their first experience of love. But it could be any sexes. It's the most inclusive possible language. I mean, they're speaking to each one as equals, and we are also speaking to God, and we're speaking to everybody of love at the same time and singing about it. So that's it. They happen to be a girl and a boy.
And it is true love. It is love of one for another. It is not taking many lovers or anything like that. It is true love, and I think that's why many of the rabbis and the church authorities saw that as a model, as a paradigm for the faithfulness of God and his people, because these two are faithful to each other. Yeah.
And they tell us that love is better than having all the money that Solomon had.
Yes. Yeah.
And his power.
So on behalf of the Beth El Temple Center community, I want to thank Scott and Josh and Louise and the Blue Heron singers and Laura for bringing this amazing program here, and adult learning, and all those who helped set everything up. There are snacks in the back. Whether you're a Beth El Temple Center member or not, I want to let you know that you can hear more of Song of Songs starting on Friday night, because we're going to sing Dodi Lee, because we have an ufruf for two brides who are Leslie and Andy Copesvink kids' daughter, and so we're going to sing Dodi Lee, and a different melody than what we did with Cantor Treitman. And on the Shabbat of Pesach is when we traditionally chant Jeri. This year it is the 7th day of Passover as well, so it'll be coinciding with Yehezkel, so you can come and hear Cantor Robbins chant Torah, Haftarah, Jeri, and Yehezkel all in the same morning. So anyway, please, that's a 9 a.m. festival service on April 19th. So if you're around and you'd like to hear more of the Pesach liturgy as well as more Jeri, I hope you'll join us. And Saturday night at 8 p.m. at First Church in Cambridge Congregational. I understand many good seats are still available, and what a pleasure to hear such extraordinary music. So thank you again for joining us.